All right, welcome back to another episode of Into the Valley, where today we will be looking back on Charlton's 1-0 loss at the Racecourse, courtesy of the Dean Windass penalty. Yeah, a bit of a
Dean?
Dean Windass. No, it wasn't, was it?
He's come back.
That'd be very impressive if it was, wasn't it? Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch the game, so I may have thought it was him, but yeah, so it was a game. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch because I was actually at Carrow Road myself. One of our mates is a good fan, and yeah, very toxic game I went to.
Yeah. Well, we look at where Charlton are and where Norwich are at the moment. We got to thank our lucky stars, to be fair.
Well, I have to admit, when I saw the result come in, I mean, I sat in the realistic side is we're going to have results where we play tight margins, where results aren't going to go our way. But when I was sitting in that home end and hearing how toxic, let's say, the nearest time I can remember is it reminded me when Atkins was really under pressure at the club. And it was just that kind of like screaming for management out, everything in a bit of turmoil. And I have to admit, when I saw our result come in and I saw what was going on around me, I thought, actually, I was quite happy. It was quite nice to know we weren't the club in that free-for-all. But, yeah, coming away from Carrow Road, the racecourse, obviously one I'm going to have to rely on a little bit more. I've seen the highlights, but what were your kind of thoughts on the game?
Yeah, so I watched the full game. I mean, I actually thought we came out the blocks pretty quickly in the game. We were quite sort of, like I say, quick out the traps in terms of getting our foot on the ball. It felt like we had a few games recently where we struggled to get into the game, whereas I feel like we were a bit more on a par with the quality they had in the middle of the park, that sort of thing. So we were able to sort of get our foot on the ball more. We had a couple of sort of early chances. The biggest one very early on, actually, I think Alaf managed to sort of burst towards the goal. He played it off to Carey, and Carey did what he's so good at. We've seen him do so many times this year. Had a really good shot on target and sort of looked like it was whipping in the bottom corner. Keeper got a really good hand to it. Then, obviously, I think the nature of that game is they were using Kiefer more very much as a sort of target man.
Which we expected going into
we
the
knew
game,
it would be the case.
Well, it's not only just the fact they got Kiefer, it's a Parky side. That's kind of, they play, over the years, they have always played with that kind of pretty big.
So they had a couple of chances that sort of came from him either getting the ball down to his feet and playing off him, or getting a little nodded, ball off from him. And then we had another sort of really good chance. Campbell managed to sort of nick it past his man on the left-hand side, or sprinted straight down the touchline, cut inside, had a shot blocked, and it fell to Bree on the edge of the box, who levered one, to be fair, right at the keeper. Keepers again made a good save. So I think their goalkeeper sort of kept them in it a little bit in terms of making some pretty solid saves.
I'm pretty sure he was maybe man of the match. I saw he was probably one of their highest rated players. He definitely, I think whenever you come away from a game with that being the case, you haven't created nothing, because the keepers had to be on pretty good form to keep us out. So.
And then we ended up having the biggest chance of that half, where the ball fell. It was a strange one, because the way it sort of the chance came, the defender sort of slid across, and the ball's sort of been bumbled into.
It blocked in the left shot, wasn't it?
Yeah, the ball's bumbled into the path.
Nibs,
the path of Nibs. He's had.
Are you sure you watched the game?
He had a lot more time than he thought he did, and he's put his foot through it, and it's obviously gone higher, clipped the top of the bar.
I have to admit, I watched that, and I think that's his moment. We've talked about him being in the squad and what he's there for, but I also think if you want to make a statement, it was such a perfect opportunity. And I thought the strange thing with it is, normally when you've hit the bar, you think, okay, good effort, a bit unlucky. I thought that has to go on target, and my biggest kind of frustration was he almost like hooked it, and it hit the top of the bar. It wasn't a great. I
think if he keeps that low, anywhere on target.
Well, he's so close.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If he drills it low, that's a goal.
Do you think that's rustiness?
Yeah, I was just about to say, I saw something online, somebody mentioned, actually, if you've got a fully fit, match fit Nibs, he's varying that. So maybe it is an element of rust, and a bit of an element of, sometimes your eyes light up a bit, don't they, in those situations. And like you say, he's probably desperate
trying to prove a point
to get that goal. He's obviously got one already, but he's desperate to sort of make his mark on the side, and I think maybe that was partly it as well, that he just sort of lashed at it a little bit.
Yeah, and I think once again we've had it a few times this season, and we've had games where we're not creating much, but we're defensively very solid. But I think one thing we are learning this season is you go up the division. Maybe last year you'd carry on that second half with getting lots of chances, but
Yeah.
I think in the Championship you do see these ebbs and flows in games, and when you are on top, if you don't take good chances, you don't know that definitely off the back of that you're then going to go
Thing
through the
is,
game
like
getting more.
we score there, and all of a sudden it's that age old adage of goals change games, and in the Championship, I think that actually is really, really prevalent, because when you score either, in the first half, you can get on top of the game a little bit more, albeit it can change the game in the opposite direction, where the other side then start really pressing on you. So who knows what would have happened, but the goal, missing that, obviously was a big moment in the game. And then in the second half, it felt as if Wrexham were growing more and more into the game. I think you again started to see that there were some players in our side that were getting tired. It's the reason Nibs came off, I think, because Nibs didn't, obviously he missed his chance, but he was solid in the game, and he sort of imposed himself quite well. But you could see he was starting to tire. We found out after the game, I think in one of Jones's interviews, that we had a couple of players who were ill during the week.
Well, I think you had Lloyd Jones, who couldn't properly train. I think you had Ramsey, and then by all accounts we had Bree with a groin injury.
Well, he was saying, because at the time I sort of noticed he wasn't on set pieces, and Jones again had sort of said that he had a groin strain and that he couldn't take his set pieces. So that's a big blow to us.
Yes, and you can understand before the game he's probably not wanting to scream about that, because you don't want to scream to the opposition.
Yeah.
We've got players who are looking a bit off.
I think as well, it's a bit of a patch-up job. He knows it's the last game before a 2-week break, so maybe he thought, okay, you can get him through it. But yeah, they grew back into the game, and then we had that crazy sort of, at the time it happened, the handball. I think you said you watched it back on.
So it's a very strange one, because I after the game waited for the highlights to come out. I watched through, and I'd had a few beers at the time, so I wouldn't say my judgment was the best. But when it came in at first, I thought on the highlight it was just a highlight, and then there was going to be a shot or something.
Yeah.
And then when I saw the ref blow over, I was very, very confused. And I watched it back over and over, and then I've watched it today with slightly better vision. And I still find it a strange one. In regards to the actual core decision itself, I find it relatively inconclusive in regards to, I watch it over and over, and I think it's like one of those VAR where they keep going over. My problem with it is why the hell you are giving the referee even a chance to make a decision, because the one thing is his hand does go into an unnatural position, and it was just like a bit of, I can't understand why he did it, because
it's a strange thing. Firstly, strange thing to have both arms sort of up in that place in full stop, because he didn't need to. It wasn't even like he was elevating himself to jump high. It was strange. But what I noticed again, and we've just watched it back just before we've come on here, and if you watch it closely, it does look like it touches the top of his hand before it hits his head. I'm not even sure it does hit his head. I think it looks as if he does. Afterwards, he tries to flick his head.
Yeah, it's like an instant almost.
He knows probably in his head that there's a chance, so he sort of makes it look as if he's headed it. The referee doesn't give it at first, and then you'll notice he blows the whistle at like probably 3 or 4 seconds after. Immediately when it happened, 2 of their players that were closest to it were screaming for it. And I think the referees probably thought, okay, maybe something's happened here. And then I think I noticed as well, as he sort of blows his whistle and walks towards the penalty spot, he signals over to the linesman, almost to say, like, the linesman's sort of giving him a little nudge to say, yeah, I think something's happened here.
I think to any official, 90% of the time, if players are going pretty mental, and it looks like it might be, I'm not saying that means definitive decision, but generally speaking, that does give a pretty good indication something's happened.
But then you saw Carey, once the ref had sort of pointed over to the linesman, Carey sort of went storming over there. So it does make me think that maybe he had quite a bit of influence on the decision. But ultimately, if you're going to look at the letter of the law, unnatural position for a hand, it's hit his hand.
Yeah, and can we also, as fans and as a club, be too critical when you look at, for example, the game against West Brom? I think this one was a bit more bizarre and a little bit more contentious, but we had one in that game that realistically was quite hard to see. I think it was a little bit more clear-cut than this, but yeah, I think it is swings and roundabouts, isn't it? But I think the time of the match that it happened is pretty catastrophic.
It was a gutting time.
By all accounts, I think our legs had kind of started to go by then. we've said it before, the likelihood of us probably at that point getting back into
Well,
games is more limited. And
the more we went on in that second half, I thought actually this would be a great point in the end. Like I say, players tiring, that sort of thing. So they win the penalty. Windass comes off the bench, good pen, straight in the bottom corner. Not much.
Dean Windass's son, if you didn't know.
Dean Windass's son. And then after that, we sort of huffed and puffed. There wasn't much in terms of attacking quality.
I think they had another chance at maybe as well.
Yeah, and then they had one that was a Josh Windass shot from distance, and it was a good save actually. And then Moores obviously had pretty much a tap in and managed to put it straight down the throat. So, and then we had one moment right at the end where Berry got a really good header from distance, actually brilliant header. And the keeper's made a brilliant save from it. But that would have been a typical, what we're used to seeing recently, where we sort of salvage something late on in the game. Would we have deserved it? I'm not sure. Like on the grand scheme, in that second half, we didn't really look that threatening at all. So on balance, you could argue that Wrexham probably got what they deserved, that we weren't at our best by any stretch. And the one thing I will say is, we're coming into the second international break now, so we've played 15 games, which we're approaching the third of the season. We're sitting in ninth. Like, we have got to be more than content with that. And I think that's what I sort of take away when we do get results like we got at the weekend. I think, actually, let's take a little step back, see where we're at, assess it. We've done bloody well.
Yeah, and even as a game, once again, we're probably looking at 3 games in a row where we haven't been on top form. I think the squad's starting to look a little bit leggy at the moment, on top of what we've also got a bit of an injury crisis, albeit I think there's clubs that have worse, but especially quite isolated into our defence. It has been quite difficult. I think there are players in there who definitely need a bit of a break. Some we could desperately do with also coming back in. And when you look over those 3 games, a draw, a win and a loss. And the good thing with that as well, and I've always said this, I think there's also got to be, when you lose, an element of performance. Yeah. And with that game, there is another day where we look at that and we say, actually, the performance, we do take our chances in that first half. It's a very, very different game. So it's not like we're coming away. I think if that game had been a 2-3-0 dominated our whole 90 minutes, I think there's maybe a bit more of a kind of concerning conversation. But I think the fact we were predominantly in the game at quite a tough place to go, the realistic side.
Yeah. But also, let's look at it this way as well. I mean, we drew with Swansea where we could have easily lost because they had some big chances at the end of the game. We come over point. West Brom, we end up getting a late goal, so we do get the 3 points, but that could have easily been a draw. And then we lose to Wrexham. So there's games where it's going to hinge on moments, which we've already just talked about. And we've had quite a few of those moments go in our favour recently. So,
well, if you're a team playing fine margins, you have to accept there can be fine margins to go in the wrong way. What it is over a season, especially what we've historically done over probably the last 12 months, is in a grand scheme, we try and keep as many of those fine margins either as draws or wins, but they are occasionally going to drop through. There's going to be some that drop through, and that seemed what it was really with this game.
It is bloody annoying losing to Wrexham, though. I think they're one of those clubs. You just... I know, and I'm
starting to feel a little bit just like a little bit of a bogey team. There's a little bit, although I don't buy into it completely, the whole circus thing. It did add a bit of an extra layer, but I think like there is whenever anyone plays probably Birmingham or Wrexham, there's a side you don't want to be the team that kind of you kind of want to get one over on them just because their story. Albeit I'm happy for them because I
was going to say like
they kind of deserve it, but
you got to give them some credit in terms of how they've come up through the leagues and ultimately. They're not a bad side. Like, they got some quality players in there, and you know.
Who did you think out of their kind of lineup the standout?
Well, to me, I think you've got, annoyingly, Dobson's always got a bit of class. He started that game, so I know he's sort of been in and out of their side. He's a good player that sort of pulls the strings in their middle. O'Brien, I thought, was really good. He's sort of an engine in that middle of the park. And then up top, they have got Moore is a bit of a donkey, but he is someone that definitely is difficult to deal with. Kabore as well. I thought actually Kabore is probably their best player actually in that game. So dangerous down that wing, and actually Tyrese Campbell was given the job of sort of trying to defend against him, and he's not a natural defender.
That's a tough one. And down that side, realistically, we had more attacking-minded players, and it does open up. Well, realistically, what you're more going for on that is who can attack better. Yeah, because you're when you come to it, you're not putting TC there to.
I actually think that side of the pitch was where we were probably most vulnerable. Like you just said, we had attacking players in that sort of filling in holes in that game. And that's probably where we got exposed quite a bit in that game. But
What did you think of Broadhead, out of curiosity? Because I know he.
yeah, he started the game.
Mm.
He had a few like sort of snapshots where he put the ball wide and
Mm.
stuff like that. He was all right. He was all right, but nothing like I wasn't like, oh, he looked class.
It's big money they paid
Yeah,
for him.
they
I
did.
mean, that's where.
Yeah, was he Ipswich?
Yeah,
yeah,
and he was
yeah.
kind of their pretty. I'd say they're pretty landmark signing this year of quite big money. It was the first one where I think they'd started the transfer window quite slowly, and it was the first time you thought actually they're putting the money in the pocket. And
Yeah.
getting, like relatively. Well, with him, I think what a lot of people thought actually quite a lot of money for what they were maybe getting.
That's probably how I felt in the game. To be fair, I thought actually, yeah, like you can see he's got something, but he wasn't. Didn't do anything that sort of made me think, yeah, he's outstanding. They had. I was going to say as well, like they had quite a few times where they stretched us defensively, but they sort of took a bit of time to sort of work the chance, and by then you know how good we are at sort of getting back in line, and they ended up having quite a few where they sort of shot and they were going wide or snapshots and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I mean, grand scheme of things, not the worst. You know, if you're a travelling fan, I can see how that would be a disappointing game to go and watch, just because of the second half we sort of fizzled out.
But in the circumstances with the injury bits and pieces as well, I think it's one that I don't think. Well, I'll put it this way: are the fans going away thinking I'm not proud of that performance in any way? Probably not.
We still gave it our all, like how we always do.
But let's say there's another day where if we don't have that mad minute of giving away the pen, realistically,
I actually think if we don't give away that pen, we keep that at 0-0 and we go away with a point, which we would have been delighted with. But obviously, it didn't happen. But.
Yeah. Well, let's move on then from there into the individual performances. Then, so going to be relying a little bit more on this because unless it was in a highlight reel, I don't have as much. I can do the Norwich 11, which
we might be doing that next week.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so let's start with Kaminsky.
Yeah, so Kaminsky actually had a good game. Again, the goal he conceded was from a penalty, which he actually made he dived the right way, and it was just a really good penalty. He had a few moments where he was solid, like he had what he always is from like distance. He's sort of very good getting himself behind the ball, and he made that really good double save, which we mentioned about before, where Windass shot from distance, palmed it back, and then Moores had a second shot, and he managed to get up really quickly and save the second effort. So he will always give you that sort of solidity in the sticks, I think, and that's what I like about him is you feel pretty comfortable with him.
Yeah, and the more games go on, I think there's only really 1 point this season, which was the first game of the season. I think it was against Watford, where he had that really weird. Arguably, they should have had a penalty.
Yeah.
He kind of rushed out and just looked a bit all over the shots. But apart from that all season, the one thing I'll say as well, and it's really something I haven't been able to say as a Charlton fan for a long time, I don't feel there's like a shocker coming.
No, he's really
and every keeper there will be something over the course of a season, but he's just Mr. Reliable.
Yeah,
and that to me,
he is.
for a keeper in the Championship, is predominantly what you want. And I'm sure you probably could say that there is better keepers in the league, but he's so reliable, so solid. And for me, especially with how we play, we don't let players and teams break us down that often. So when you need to rely on a shot-stopping save, he seems to be doing really well at that.
He does. And that's, I think, what we brought him in for was how sort of we know what we're going to get from him. Yeah, so again, I can't really argue. And again, how many games have we conceded 2, 3, 4 goals? We haven't. He always keeps it tight, and I know our defence is very, very good, but he does his job incredibly well, and that keeps the scorelines down.
Well, we've also discussed that realistically, I think on average, he probably has been only having to average 2 to 3 saves a game.
Yeah.
That arguably is sometimes more difficult than actually being peppered the whole game, because I think relying on a keeper when you don't have much, and it's the concentration. I think at that level, it's so easy to have a keeper who loses concentration because they're not in the game, and that's when a mistake will happen.
100%.
And I think actually so many teams we've come up against this season where their keepers have made a mistake, they've looked shaky, and I just don't feel that towards us anymore.
Well, you only got to look at last week. Their goalkeeper letting the ball under his arms, and we haven't, touch wood, we haven't seen that yet.
Let's wait for the next game then. So let's move on to the back three then. So we'll start with one, Gillespie.
Yeah, I'm actually, funny enough, I thought Gillespie was pretty solid. We've sort of been a bit critical of him in the last few games where he's sort of had a few moments where you felt actually he's lost his head a little bit in certain times. I thought he was very solid. I thought he was, we always talk about how he sort of does the crossfield balls and that sort of stuff. He was still doing that. We were playing those sort of threaded, sort of long field balls through. Nothing to really sort of be too concerned about in that one. He, again, our defence did what they always do and put up a really good solid line.
Mm.
We were more getting attacked in that game down. I was saying about the side that Campbell was on, so we were having to double up a little bit there and sort of try and get behind where Cabore was trying to run in. But in terms of sort of the mainstay of winning the ball, sort of,
Doing the basics,
yeah. Which is what he did, and there's nothing I can really say too much to sort of.
Well, I think the concern a lot of the time with him comes is that there is that not moment of madness, but he can sometimes look a little bit all over the place defensively, and he goes through little spells in games, and I don't think he is. I think consistently over the course of 90 minutes, a lot of the time, he is okay. Like, he is decent in the squad. I think sometimes he just has those little moments where he does.
What he did, there actually was one moment with Gillespie where we were sort of stretched very much so on one of their counter attacks. I think if I think it might have been Moore at the time was out on the left, and he was just about to play it across to Windass, who was pretty much bang open to just run it in. And Gillespie's got on the end of it, and I think there where he's very good actually, where he can just make that little block or like get his foot in the way. That's where his sort of natural defensive instinct does actually prove him quite well.
Yeah, and I do also think maybe the setup of, as you say, with what they were doing in regards to, they're quite a midfield-focused team, big man up top, maybe a slightly slower pace. They're not really rip-roaring at you. And I think where Gillespie struggles predominantly
is when he gets stretched.
When he has really pacey players pulling everyone out, and that's where he looks a little bit. So maybe it also was a team that suits his style of play quite well. So let's move on from there then on to, I say, two that by all accounts had illness kind of coming out after the game. So we start with Lloyd Jones.
Yeah, so Jones,
won every header.
Yeah, I mean,
I can tell you the performance.
Yeah. You didn't even need to watch the game to know what he was up to. I mean, yeah, what you get, and again, we knew in that game that he was going to come up against Kiefer Moore. It's a really tough player to sort of defend against. You got what you expect from Jones, is him manhandling him, winning the majority of the headers, pretty much every single one.
Did you feel it was one where he kept him quite quiet?
He did, although there were still moments where Moore was able to sort of back in. Just his sheer size, he's a big boy.
I think it's difficult to stop some, especially when he is a centre point of. I think in a Parky team, as we said earlier, they do play for that style. Their centre point is they want to get balls in the box, him there to cause trouble.
Spearhead.
And the realistic side is you're never going to stop that 100%, but you can nullify it to the best of your ability.
And I think that's what happened in it ultimately, is that because Moore had a couple of sniffs, but in general we kept him pretty quiet. And I think that's what Jones is really brilliant at, is just being on top of the man. I noticed as well, Jones got a bit of a knock towards the sort of, I can't remember, we had probably about 20, 30 minutes left in the game, and he was almost playing on with a bit of a limp. So again, I think it was like a contact injury.
Dead leg. That's perfect coming into 2 weeks off.
Exactly, and I think and that again just highlights that we're probably so desperate for this break now. Just let's get a bit of restore the sort of fitness in the players, and that's how it felt a little bit as well. But he did what he always does. He's so solid. Nothing.
Do you feel with Jones a little bit? The only thing, and it's not a criticism to him, it's more something as a team. I think maybe I just thought this season we'd see a little bit more of, is he is such a threat defensively he's so solid and he wins every header.
Yeah.
I thought I know there's been a few quite close chances, but I thought from like corners and stuff we might have got a few more goals out of him, and I know we have from other players, but I just feel like he is someone who very rarely loses a header, and I don't know if it's just unlucky that I know there has been a few chances, he's had a few that he's maybe missed or whatever, but I just wonder if there is a position there where, set piece wise, we can work on it a bit more.
Burke's popped up with a headed goal, hasn't he? I think Gillespie always tends to score a couple from corners and stuff like that. So yeah, you're right. Maybe there's something that he could add to his game a little bit more.
I just don't know if it's his positioning on, but the other thing is I know that he marked quite heavily because of his size. He probably is our biggest threat on that. So maybe it's not a criticism. It's just something I noticed. When I looked the other day and I was doing our bit of artwork we put on, I was just quite surprised he hasn't got anything.
I think he probably will pop up with a couple. Or like he's the sort of defender that might get a couple in the season, mightn't he, over the space of a 46 game season.
And sometimes it's actually just his presence of causing chaos. That's exactly what he had against Watford, I think it was the beginning of the season. It was sheer presence sometimes causes the chaos. So I say it's not a criticism.
It's a fair point.
Yeah, just a point really. Yeah. So let's move on to the final of the centre backs then. So Kane Ramsey.
Yeah, I thought Ramsey, actually, considering he's like sort of been in and out of the side a little bit since he had that red card, I actually thought he had a really good game. He's a runs really, really hard as always. Was sort of blocking shots, that sort of thing. So again, really solid. I'm not sure you would have noticed massively. I know they sort of said that he had a sickness. Still put a massive shift in the game, and I think actually he is a player that has that athleticism at the back, which is I know we were saying how we came up against like Kabore, and they had a couple of other players with a bit of pace. So he's crucial for those sort of scenarios, albeit he was the opposite side. So
Yeah, I think when it probably comes to those injuries, the realistic side is the Bree one makes a bit more of a difference because you say he was off the set pieces. It sounds like, from what I understand, the Jones one and the Ramsey one probably didn't have too much impact to them actually in game.
yeah,
They didn't notice it as
no,
much.
it's more that they didn't have such a good build up to the.
And I wonder if after it's a little bit of a just to
Soften it a little bit.
Soften the blow a little bit, add it all in. And I think Jones was trying to make, personally, I read it, that he was trying to make a point that he really just needs a couple of weeks to try and get a few more players back. I think he was using it more as an add-on point than it actually being a massive impact. So
yeah. But also just quickly on Ramsey, I know last week you were a bit sort of disappointed he wasn't sort of darting into the space. We saw that a bit more in this game.
Okay,
actually.
good.
Yeah, so that's something I will give him, is that he had a few more moments where he ran it out of the defence and looked for the space, which he's really good at actually. And when like you said, it's disappointing when he doesn't do it because he's got the ability to do it.
Well, and I think that's where I looked at it last week, is I think there's a few players in that squad in the positions they play, and it's weird saying that from a right-sided centre-back. We know he has got that attacking threat. In games where we're not creating as much, or games where we're looking off it, that is a moment where that player can pick it up, push through, and actually start to get us more into the groove of things. And that's what I was so disappointed about last week. I just felt maybe it was confidence thing, and I say that was my biggest thing, because I felt like he was almost beating himself up about it a lot. So maybe a few games of him doing a bit more of that, and he will just drop back in.
I definitely noticed it more in this game, that he was willing to sort of push up the pitch, and that ultimately breaks lines, and that's what gets us in those good positions. So that's one thing I will give him actually in this game.
Good. Well, let's start on the right-hand side then. So, as we said, carrying a bit of an injury by the sounds of it, but Bree.
I think that does actually make sense, because he's not a player that I would say I'm massively noticed in that game. And again, he's the one that usually, when we get those chances from crosses, what he's so good at, what we know he's great at, he wasn't even on corners, so it's not as if he was able to whip balls in the box. So the only thing that we mentioned as well, though, if he had a serious injury, or even one that was limiting the way he can cross the ball,
which is his main,
which is why we put him in the team, why are we not then looking at Apter, for example, to come in and actually make an impact in that?
So I find this an interesting one, and I think there is a world where Apter would have played that position. Now, I think our biggest problem, and because I felt the same when I saw things there, and then especially afterwards, I thought the exact same. My biggest worry is, I think, because on the other side you had Campbell and Fuller.
Yeah.
I don't think he always wants to, when we attack, drop still back into at least having that back four. And I think with Bree, he does see more of a defensive
more
side.
Physical as well.
Well, my worry would be, if you've got Campbell, you've also got Apter, and then you've got Fuller.
They're all small.
It's all very attacking, and we've also gone for the Carey Nibs centre mid kind of partnership, which is a little bit more attacking. I would assume he looks at it and think, okay, actually on the counter, we're going to get caught out a bit too much with.
I think that's a fair point, actually.
And the only way to counter that is by going, Apter, don't run forward and don't go as attacking. What's the point in having Apter if he's not going to be running at players and playing in the final third? So I think that's the only reason I can see that there was probably a quandary. And if we had had one other centre-back in, I think the argument would have been Ramsey playing out on the right, and the centre-backs being Jones, Gillespie and Burke.
Because we're so threadbare that the way he can plug those holes is quite limited. And you're right. Also, I think with Bree as well, I think Jones likes the fact that he almost sits in as a bit of a midfielder at times, and he's very good at passing on the ball and stuff like that. So maybe he felt we needed that, especially like you said, Nibs, Carey, all that stuff. So I'm
just not sure in that system you can play Campbell, Fuller, Alaf and Apter. It's very
fair.
Yeah, that would be my gut feeling on it. Albeit I did look at it and think, maybe as the game was going on as well, maybe you could look at it, because I think Apter has got some defensive traits you could rely on a little bit. But a bit of a strange one. But let's move to the other side then, and I find this quite a difficult one. I'm not sure, having watched the game or not, which one. Maybe it was a bit of a kind of interlapping, but the left wing back, Campbell or Fuller, let's call it Campbell.
No, it was Campbell, because if we watch, obviously I watched the whole game, like he was up against Kabore fairly regularly on that left-hand side. So what I will say for Campbell is, for playing in a position that isn't a natural position for him at all. He's not. When you look at Tyrese Campbell, what he brings as a player is we speak about it all the time, how he's so good at fronting up his man, quick feet, running with pace and cutting in and shooting and crossing. He was having to defend against Kabore, who was arguably one of the best sort of wing players that I've seen us come up against this season. Very dangerous, quick, always looking to sort of take his man on, and he was one of those players that, you know, when they get near the edge of the box, you don't know if he's going to run it to the byline and try and cross it in, or if he's going to cut in. So it was really difficult. You never knew what way.
Similar to what was some of the danger we'd probably talk about with Apto.
But I guess then also, yeah, exactly. But also, you could argue as well, though, Campbell's a good person to in a way to defend against that, because that's what he's good at. So he kind of can second guess him in a little bit as well.
I think I also look in that game as well. We're talking about with Campbell this developing from what he is now into a better player year on year. I actually think some performances where he has to maybe do that part of the game might actually help him in the long run. And actually that will, even though the next game he might be then back up in that more top role, it will help him that he's played up against a player like Kabore. Will help him how to learn to position better and all of that. So it's not a...
It helps with positioning. Yeah. Also, it gives him, he has to learn that side of the game where it's the more defensive type. He also, I was going to say, he had a couple of moments where he shoulder barged his man and completely barged him off and won the ball back. So they're things that we're seeing creep into his game more and more that I'm actually really pleased to see, because they're the things we've been really after sort of him getting a bit more physical, getting a bit more aggressive. And he also did have the moment where he managed to nick the ball in front of his man on the wing, and as I said, he cut inside, block shot, but that's what created that massive chance for Brie in the end. So he still did bring those elements of us hitting on the counter or him bursting down the wings, which we know he's so good at.
Well, and it also as well, to Nathan Jones, to us as fans, shows another option that could potentially go there, albeit realistically left wing back.
He's a last resort, I think.
No one's looking at the lineup and go, realistically, you're going Edwards, you're then going down to I think there's an argument saving Gillespie maybe would have played out there,
and
had it been
Hernandez as well. But I think because Hernandez had been played a couple of times recently, that's why he was bench. But
sounds like he did quite reasonably well for a relatively tough position for him.
I would say Campbell had a really solid game, genuinely. Yeah.
Well, let's then move into from there the centre of the park then. So I'm going to start with one, and then I'll go into one that I'm quite interested to see what your thoughts were really on it. Coventry, by all accounts, I think had a pretty good game.
Yeah, I think Coventry. Well, he's just been called up to the Ireland squad, for the international.
I think he was emergency called up the last time.
He was
this time. It's fully called.
But
up.
I think it's well deserved, and I think you've had Jones say actually it's a long time coming. Actually, he's been so solid for us for so many.
Well, they could do with a bit of a rest.
Well, I don't know how much games he might get off the bench. But I think he just brings that real energy in the middle, and actually he was the sort of the deep sitting midfielder, I think. So he did bring some nice little threaded passes into his game, which I've said that I've wanted to see more and more. So he's getting his head up more, and I think actually because of the quality of the team we were up against, I think we were more evenly matched in that middle of the park in this one. They do have O'Brien and also Dobson who are actually really good at getting their foot on the ball, but it felt like because and we'll go on to Nibs in a second, but we had some players in there that a bit more creative. It gave him license to sort of push it forward.
Well, that's one question I was going to ask, because I think the Nibs one is an interesting one in regards to the one playing in front. But how did you feel Coventry's performance changed in comparison to having Carey against next to him, as in comparison to having Doherty next to him?
What that did for me, and it was really only highlighted massively in the first half, because as I said, we tailed off in the second, and obviously Nibs ended up going off. That has actually cemented the fact to me that is the way that we need.
Was it noticeable?
Yeah, 1,000,000%.
Because we've got to look at it and say if it was noticeable in that game, and it was noticeable, it was probably one of the main reasons in the last game as to how we turned the game round.
Yeah.
I think it's starting to paint a bit of a picture.
I'd love to know what other Charlton fans think about that, because for me, automatically what that does, we've still got Coventry in that area of the pitch where he can do what he does so well. So running hard defensively, being that pit bull in the middle. But having Nibs in there, one, he gives you a physicality, so he gives you a bit more of a frame. He's a big boy. He runs hard. He's actually very good on the ball, and I think obviously we know that he nearly scored in that game, so he gets himself forward too. But what it does is it gives Carey that license, and I'm not saying it. What in the last game against West Brom, when we made that change, Carey, it was very, very noticeable. Now, I think it was still noticeable in this one, but it's going to take a bit of time. But what I'm really am pleased with is that it all of a sudden we look more attacking in that middle of the park. which I think we've been
Yeah.
looking for.
Well,
a
for
while.
me, Carey, and my biggest shout for it as a potential system is, I think the more I've seen it, and I've seen it as tactical change in the game, there's an argument to say he's been very, very effective in that centre attacking mid role. But I actually argue that his best traits and what he's actually best at is probably actually more dangerous from a deeper role. He's probably going to get more pop shots towards those long range shots. He can pick up the ball and drive with more players in front of him, which only opens up more space. For me, I think almost it's wasted playing him at centre attacking mid.
But also, I think as well, he can bring what Doherty brings, which
Mm.
is like he does run hard and he's good defensively. He does battle.
Well, let's focus in on him now. So, Sonny Carey, how did you feel his performance in the game?
Like I think he had a really big chance very early in the game, which is what we've seen so many times from him, which is where he did the little cut inside and he really good hard hit shot into the corner, and without that keeper making a really good save, that's 1-0.
And showing he's still getting in those positions either from a
So
slightly deeper
even
right.
if he's playing in that sort of middle of the park, he's still going to burst forwards, and that's what you just mentioned it there. He's still going to be really good at running into those little pockets. He's still going to be able to battle in the middle. And also what he does is he takes the game by the scruff of the neck. He's the sort of player that if we are looking like we need a bit of impetus, he's the one you look to say, right, let's get him on the ball a bit more. And he's able to get on the ball if he's in that position. So that's, yeah.
So do you think with Carey in that position, do you think there has been something in Jones' head thinking that may be a system we work towards, or do you think...
I think so, because I think we saw such a...
Because I think he really likes Doherty for his passion and his love for the club, which I do as well. I struggle sometimes because I think as a captain on the pitch, he can be an incredibly good leader. I just think the more the season's going on, I'm starting to, although his performances have definitely improved, I am just starting to see a part of the game where I'm thinking, I think that he's holding us back.
We saw when we made that change in the middle of the park how much of an impact it made recently. And what I will say as well for Jones is I don't think he's the most sentimental of managers. I think if he knows that there's a different way he can go about it, and we've seen it in quite a few scenarios at the club since he's been there.
You've only got to see Bree to Apter to a certain extent.
Exactly that. And Ramsey as well. Like Ramsey dropping out the side and not being able to just come straight back in. If someone comes in and does a good job and maybe actually brings an element of something that's a bit different or starts to click, he will happily make those changes. And I think he's not a manager that's afraid of upsetting people if it's working for the team.
And I do sometimes feel that that is what actually makes, as well, the players who are in the background want to work so hard. Because the realistic side is, if a player does drop off or something that's not quite working, there is an opportunity there for you to step in and make your mark. And I think that's something in the squad that by doing what he does and by, I say, dropping Ramsey, for example, all of those centre-backs who are sitting in the wings will go, well, 100% I've got a chance at some point this season, but I have to keep on it and I have to make sure when I get my opportunity, I will prove it. And I think that's kind of, I say, with most positions and what we're probably seeing right now with Carey. But, for example, if anyone there did drop off, I'm sure Doherty would be there then waiting again to jump in as well.
So we got that depth, which is perfect.
I just think it'll be interesting after an international break. Will we see Doherty come back in, or will it be this is a more what we're running to?
I'm really intrigued as well, to be fair.
Well, let's move on to the final change of that then. Someone I am very interested because someone I think is a signing I've been disappointed with what I've seen so far, but not probably through blaming him. I think it's through game time and lots of things I'm not going to judge. But what did you think of Nibs in the game?
Well, like I say, like that setup in the middle, I really liked, and I think it was working well in that first half. What he brings, I keep saying it, but he brings a physicality. So he brings a sort of structure in that middle. He brings athleticism, but he also brings quality on the ball. He is very good at getting the ball down. And he's quite a dangerous player when he starts running with the ball as well, which I'm hoping that we'll see more and more of. Like we see little glimpses of it at times, especially when he manages to get into those areas in the box, like for his chance. Obviously, he was able to burst into the box. Obviously, albeit not finishing his effort, but the more he plays, the more he's going to get into those scenarios and he's going to get into those positions.
Yeah, and I think with Nibs, as I say, I think there's as long as you're seeing those signs of what he can be, I think there is still a player there who needs a lot of
as well. Like he's definitely rusty. Like
and I think with him, I think it's maybe a player that we are going to have to see in the squad 5, 6, 7 times in a row to really be able to judge what he's like. But
the other interesting with him actually, because we said like it might take a little bit of time for him to really establish himself in the team, and I think that's going to be the case. But he had a pre-match interview that they aired actually before the game, and he actually mentioned that when he sort of signed for the club, Jones had said to him like, we want to develop you as a player. You're going to be here for a long time.
That's interesting.
And I think that is why he's been brought in, is that he's got a lot of potential, and I think he will eventually become a really key part of that team. But that it might take a little bit of time.
They want to iron certain
and I think they want to almost mould him a little bit.
And I think we've got a few players that is the case, because I think that is the absolute epitome. And I know he started the game, and probably let's move on to him next, because it's quite a nice one to go on to. But I think the exact same with Tanto.
Yeah.
I think Tanto has the raw attributes to be an incredibly good player. I do fear that there is some bits that I think to make him good, there are some bits that need ironing out. And I think that might be exactly what we're seeing with him. I mean, what did you feel we saw in this game from Tanto?
Again, like, I feel when we play Alaf, like, he has the ability to break the lines. He's a really good runner with the ball. Because he's quite stocky, but also very quick and good feet. When he gets those little areas where he can burst in, he's very effective and he's very good at it, and he does make defenders stand up and think, okay, this guy's got a bit of pace, he's dangerous. Like you said, he's probably, even when he was at Stockport, I think there were moments where, like, he'd get into good positions and sort of lash the ball a little bit, and he was a bit...
You saw it in the playoff semi-final. I think he had the chance right in the 90th minute where he lashed it over the bar. And I think that's what I've seen from him personally. I don't know if I'd rely on him one-on-one. And I think he has got raw attributes to make him a very good player. I think there is a lot of ironing out and coaching to do with him to bring him into championship level. I think he could probably at the moment be a very effective League One player, but I think we are probably looking more at a squad player. And I think fans that maybe look at him being the answer to some of our striker woes at times, I'm not sure he's not a
quick fix.
No.
But also, you mentioned it a minute ago, and I strongly believe that's been a big part of our transfer strategy, is bring players in that we know have the raw attributes, the quality there to be brilliant players, and actually let's take a bit of time. Let's turn them into those players that we know they can be. And they've got those attributes ready to go.
And that's maybe when we're also looking. I've seen so many fans saying, for example, Apter, and I've felt, is he going to be really annoyed in the background? But I suppose if Jones has had that honest conversation at the beginning, saying, look, you're going to be in and out of the squad, we're developing you. He may have said for the first year, you're going to be a squad player, you're going to be in and out the squad. But we as fans think, because he had such a good start, we all think that he's going to be in there going, why aren't I playing every week? And
I think one thing you can guarantee with Nathan Jones, he's not like a fluffer. He's not going to bullshit you, is he? Like,
well, I think he's a man manager, and I think you've got to have faith in whatever he's putting together and however he's treating the players. He's not. I think the one thing he's built in all his squads over the years is like a unity, a togetherness, and you don't do that by just telling players, "Oh, you'll be starting every week."
He's not a yes man, is he? No, 100%. He's a player. He's a manager that will tell them exactly what his process will be for their career at the club.
And they've agreed to that when they've signed.
But that's also a great thing, because it means that he knows that the way that he sort of implements that and sort of puts them into the side, maybe drops them out occasionally. They're prepared for that. They know what's coming. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I think he does emphasise, doesn't it? It's a team game, not the individuals, not the starting.
Oh, he uses his squad to the absolute nth degree. So,
well, let's finish on the final one of the starting lineup then. Someone who absolutely burst onto the scene. Last week, Ibi.
Yeah, I actually think for the fact that he had such a good impact in the last game, I was delighted that he was given the chance to actually start a game, and I think he would have been raring to go in that one, because he's probably held he's bided his time to actually get his moment. Really good. I think dangerous. He had quite a few moments where what he's so good at is his foot. When he gets his foot on the ball, he's very composed. Like 18, we have to keep reminding ourselves he's 18 years old. So composure on the ball, very good. Obviously, he's got to get used to. He's going from under 21 football to playing in the Championship.
We talk about TC having a bit learning curves and stuff, and the realistic side is he has probably over 100 games for us now. I mean, he's got a lot of game time for us. This young boy is going to be learning his trade, and he's going to be raw as hell. But I think sometimes, actually, for me, that's where we're going to see some pretty fun moments this season, because I think the one thing you have with that is complete and utter fearlessness, and I think as long as he goes in it with that ability as well, I think we'll see games where he'll positionally be a bit out. He'll be learning so much, but it seems like just such an exciting.
There were moments in that you're like, you probably didn't see it, but quite early on in the game, he's gone one of their players is breaking, and he's gone to really put sort of a big slide tackle in, completely missed the bite. The guys, I think it's Kabore actually was. Kabore sprinted, nudged the ball forwards, and obviously Fuller's missed the ball and taken him completely out. Got an early yellow card, and they're learning curves that he's going to come up against.
Well, because also that does make his game a bit more challenging as it's going on. You have to be a bit careful, and we talked about it very, very different. We talked about Coventry recently, where in like 10 minutes in he got it, and you do have to. It does change the way your game is.
But also, Fuller does not want to get a red card on his debut. He does a full debut. Do you know what I mean? Like you said, it'll get an early yellow card. They're things that he'll learn, like not to dive in that quickly in that area of the pitch. But what I would say is that he was always there to sort of add that little exciting moment. Like I say, he did still bring those moments that we're probably going to see so many of, which is where he does that little bit of trickery or wins the ball in the middle of the park and sort of manages to get us up the pitch, which is what he's on there for.
Well, and I also think lovely to know we have got another, because I think we do sometimes, even in this squad, and I think we've talked about over last season to this season that we maybe rely on certain players to be those burst out of nothing players, and I think we have got. I mean, we lost Small, we got Apter in, and he's kind of there to do that. But so actually know that someone like TC, for example, we do have someone who could step into that position and bring that exciting, that flair that I think sometimes, as I say, is needed in certain games. Very exciting to see. I mean,
and like I say, like for his full debut, very good. Like very
just another one off the conveyor belt, isn't it?
Yeah, just another one out Sparrows, isn't it?
Yeah. So, well, let's quickly move on to the subs. I'm sure not too much to really discuss too much in here. So, 61st minute. Doherty coming on for Coventry, was it?
I think it might have been Nibs.
Oh, no, it's Nibs. Yeah, it's Nibs. Yeah.
So, Nibs went off.
Because Carey pushing up and dropping.
Yeah, so what we're used to seeing, really. Nibs, when he came off, he was blowing. Like, you could tell he was like,
well, that's what we talked about.
We knew, like, after that amount of time, he was probably going to be ready to come off. Doherty obviously comes on, runs hard, does what he always does. But I actually, as I mentioned already, like, that time of the game, we were sort of petering out a little bit. Hard for a player that sort of, that position to come in and really make a huge impact.
Yeah, but still, I'm guessing probably a bit of shift in.
He always does. Like, and obviously he took the armband when he came on, so again, that leadership, all that stuff. But
yeah, it seems like just a tough game to come into. Very little to be able to talk too much about. One we can talk a little bit more about coming on for Ibi Hernández.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the moment of madness.
Let's just move that aside, because there's no way we can defend that side of it, and it does kind of sum up his performance, I guess, to a certain extent, because that's what you're going to walk away from it. But away from the moment of madness, anything that you kind of brought to the game at all, or do you feel it was?
He's essentially come on to defend. And again, like
was it seeing? I'm guessing Campbell move a bit more attacking and him dropping to left
wing. That was what happened because Kabore was then running in up against Hernández. He got perked. He had a funny old game because he came on. Obviously, gave the pen. No, I'm not going to bang on about it, but he gave away the pen.
Let it go.
He came on, gave away the pen. I'll stop saying it. But he also had a funny moment where he cleared the ball and it sort of deflected off their player and the ref gave it the other way, and I don't think they missed it, and he just wouldn't let it go and he was screaming at the linesman, got a yellow card. So he's definitely he's that South American fiery sort of player, which, and also I do think we mentioned already, we've got a Norwich fan who sort of seen him play a lot. He's obviously very passionate. The way he plays,
I think fans love him because of what he puts into everything, but he
has those moments.
He has moments. He's a bit questionable in regards to consistency and chance taking. But as a squad player coming in,
I'm glad he's been brought in. To be fair,
the only thing to say is just decision making in key moments. That's got the one thing we don't want, because I think something we have really eliminated from this squad, which when Jones took over was such a massive issue, was key decision making that would ruin games and would actually change.
Yeah, we used to get that all the time.
Oh, it was awful. And the one thing I hope with him that we haven't brought in with that fiery side is that we do bring in someone who's a bit more erratic and will make those mistakes.
It's funny, like very occasionally it still creeps in, and that's why I sort of always a little bit wary of Gillespie, because he's got that in his locker where he has a bit.
And he was part of that team when it did go very downhill.
And we still occasionally see those little flickers of madness from him. But if, for example, Hernández comes in and does that regularly or enough, Jones will probably be looking to sort of...
Well, I think if I saw it in one more game, because he's only here till January, if I saw it in one more game, it would probably be enough for me to say, look, he's fine. And also as well, maybe you can't have him in the positions where
Don't play him in
keeping him as a left wing role, keeping him in that attacking role. Because if he's going to make silly defensive mistakes, that is something where we could undo a whole game's worth of pretty much what we did. So move on to the final one. He'll have a not applicable rating because he didn't play long enough. But Luke Berry?
Yeah, funny enough, although he'll have a non-applicable rating, he actually did do what we expect from him and is actually making an impact. He is a player that I don't care how many minutes he gets in a game, he's always looking to sort of get a shot away. The header that he has at the end of the game, their keeper's made a brilliant save, but it was bloody drilled in. Carey's drilled it in hard, quite far away from the goal, and he's managed to sort of really get his neck sort of wrapped around it, get it on target. And actually, if the keeper doesn't make that fantastic save, then who knows? We've had it already with Berry against was it Swansea that he got the late? Can't remember who it was. I
can't remember. He scored late against.
Was it Swansea? No one's
Hull.
Hull.
Oh.
In that game, and obviously dug us out of Hull, and no pun intended. But even in this one, he's that sort of player that actually bring him on, and he could just get you a late goal, and he nearly did.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that potentially he is that sub that can, as I say, I think he hit the nail on the head. I think it was after the whole game where he said, "Look, whatever the squad needs, I'll be that for whatever's needed." And the fact that maybe he is going to take that role on of coming on in that moment and having that experience to maybe score, create something out of nothing. I think, he's showing why he is still such an important part of the squad. And for me, it's expressing as well where I think sometimes in this squad we do need a player like that. And I think for me as well, Matty Goddens, that I think we've got probably coming back is, I think he's someone we desperately need at the moment. Just in certain positions, whether that is, I don't know what his role will be, whether it be coming straight back in starting lineup or whether it'll be coming on. But yeah, I think that they're players that definitely from last season we maybe underestimate how much of an impact they have.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that he's just like a wily old fox, isn't he, in terms of like knowing in games, especially we're coming on in games, because I think predominantly we're going to see him come on later in games. I think that's probably what his role is going to be. But he's coming on at times where players are a bit tired, and he's exactly that sort of player that knows where to target when players are tired and where to sort of shoot from, where the little gaps are going to open.
At that point of the game where other people's legs are gone, he's kind of probably on a level playing field at that point.
So yeah, exactly.
It doesn't make as much of an impact, the fact he's maybe not as... I think we talk about him like he's Zimmer framing into the pitch. He's not that bad, but it definitely does have an impact as he gets a bit older.
But he's also a player that we know from just seeing him, obviously at Charlton, but for previous as well. He's got a really good strike on him, so he's always a danger.
Very technically gifted.
Yeah, very. Yeah.
Well, there we go. We can shut the circus for another year, albeit where they'll be coming to the Valley at some point. But a game to forget. And yeah, it seems like every time as well, the final point I'll say towards it is every time we play Wrexham, we seem to go into a bit of an injury crisis and a bit of that. So it'd be nice to play them on a level playing field at some point. But
I just think it's one of those, like, we could almost have called this result before the game because, like I say, they seem to have become a little bit of a bogey team, which is a bit annoying. Disney FC.
Yeah. Let's drop it and let it go. Let it go. So let's quickly move on to our next game then. So we've got a good couple of weeks, which is nice.
We need it, don't we?
Yeah, the international break. But when we come back, we'll be having a 12:30 kickoff against Southampton at the Valley. So
they've picked up now, haven't they? Because they got rid of Will Still. I think that from what I've seen, like they've sort of made a few changes in the team since he's left. And they've started to sort of look like a better side. So I think that's going to be a really challenging game, albeit at the Valley, which is what we need really after a break. I think going back to home serve.
Well, you look last five for them: 3-1 loss against Bristol City, 2-1 loss against Blackburn, 2-0 loss against Preston. I think that's when Will Still went.
Yeah.
And since then, he gets a 2-1 away win to QPR and a 3-1 win at home to Sheffield Wednesday. One thing I will say is the two teams they played there, albeit QPR away, but I think QPR have gone on a little bit of drop of form. Yeah, there's definitely a team there that's still... One thing I will say is they've got the new manager bounce 100%, but they also have got, clearly, to be in the position they are, they've got good players, but they've also got problems they've got to iron out, and I don't believe that's all done overnight.
No.
So I still think there is a team there that, realistically, if you look at a Southampton team where they should be and how difficult that game should be... We are still seeing them at a point where we can take advantage.
Well, let's just put it this way. Like, if we were looking at that fixture before the season started, we'd be like, okay, that's one of our toughest games of the year. We're not probably looking at it in that regard right at this very moment in time because of where they sit in the league. they've not got a manager. Whether they'll have one by the time we play them, they might do. They might have appointed one. But yeah, so I think it's an opportunity for us to really take advantage of the fact they're still under a little bit of disarray in terms of, but albeit they've picked up. But again, like you said, the teams that they've come up against are hardly world beaters, are they?
And also as well, the flip side of that is I think one thing we've got to take of this Charlton team for the rest of the season to a certain extent, unless we really fall off a cliff, the realistic side is this is a Charlton team that went to Ipswich not long ago and won 3-0 away.
Yeah,
so if we can do that to Ipswich
away from home,
the realistic side is there shouldn't be any game this season we look at and go, absolutely no chance we can get something out of this. And I think, as you say, at the Valley as well, I think the one hope I have is just I think we have looked leggy over the last few games. I think we have looked a bit disjointed.
But we're going to be refreshed, aren't we?
And I hope so. And I hope we can just maybe a few of those injuries. I don't know what the timeline is on a few of the players. I think probably the most important one for me at the moment is the Josh Edwards coming back in. I think that's
yeah, I'm not sure how far off he is because I think his injury, did he have surgery? I think he might have done. So
or Amari Bell coming back.
Bell would be good.
Play that role, yeah.
To be honest, at this moment in time, even someone like Burke just being fit to be able to rotate the defence a bit. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see who's able to come back into the side. But we say as well, like you say, I don't think I fear anyone at the Valley this season. We've come up against teams like Leicester, and albeit we lost, but we should have probably beaten them. So whoever comes to the Valley, I think, one, they're going to be up against it in terms of the atmosphere we create there. Teams also know that we don't really lose games at the Valley. So I think there's a level of respect from the teams that visit us. And I'm really intrigued to see how we get on against Southampton, who are a team steeped with quality players, whether they are able to obviously get it all together in the situation they're in now.
Well, and the realistic side, it will come down to this will be the final of the relegated sides we've got to play in the first half of the season.
Yeah.
Leicester, let's look over those games. The realistic side, Leicester, they beat us, but very, very fortunate. But what we have got to take from that game is that one moment of quality with what they have.
And that's what these teams have.
And change that game. And then the Ipswich game, which once again as well, though, the first half of that game was probably the most we've been pulled pillar to post in any game this season. So there's a lot of respect that's got to be given there. But within reason, to know we also do have our strengths. And I think we actually do match into games like that sometimes quite well with how solid we are defensively. So very interesting one in my opinion. Will be a very interesting one.
It will.
Well, let's quickly, final one, we'll look over the league table, which I'll bring up now. Yes, we've dropped to the lowly heights of 9th place.
Yeah.
Season over.
All doom and gloom now from here on in.
Yeah, no, still brilliant. 9th place. As I say, if you'd have said going into where we are now, and also some of the tough games we've had, we played a lot of the good teams.
Yeah.
So we're coming up to now the third of the relegated teams as well. Quite a few of the ones actually that are sitting in that playoff picture at the moment as well. Incredibly happy.
I'm delighted, I literally, and it's given us that opportunity to push on, obviously, and we're, as fans, we're delighted where we are in the league, but we're always going to want more. So if we're capable of pushing up the league and sticking in that sort of area of the table, then that's bloody brilliant. But if we do tail off a little bit, that's probably, by the time we've tailed off, that's where we probably expected to be at the start of the season.
Very interesting quick one, because I know we want to wrap things up on this now anyway, but what's your thinking if we are sitting where we are now come the 1st of January? Do you expect there would be the board committing
We spoke about this, didn't we? Yeah, it's an interesting one because if we're loitering in and around the playoffs, you're not going to get too many seasons where the league, we've spoken about this already, how open the league is this year and how the top teams that come down from the Premier League are really struggling. And do you have a punt? I don't know.
Well, because I also think with this squad that I think this squad is actually performing, and there's certain players that are probably outperforming even maybe what they thought they would bring in this initial moment. And I actually think when I look at our squad, I think there's relative small levels of having to improve to actually level us up. Which I don't know if they would have looked at the beginning of the season. I think they would have thought a bit more of a project of building some of these players. I don't think they foresaw Sonny Carey to come in and do what he's done.
No, 100%. And I think you're right. It's not like you need to drastically sort of improve the team. It's little tweaks here and there that get into that extra little bit of quality in. And that could actually even be through a really quality loan signing. So it'll be really interesting to see where we're at. One, where we're at that time in the year, whether we can keep this form up. And two, also, whether we're in that position where actually the owners are going to go, right, let's give it a go. We may as well. So
be very interesting, won't it? Very interesting.
It could be a really exciting new year, actually.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, look, that's where we wrap it up for the one today. So thank you very much for giving it a watch today. As always, look, if you have enjoyed the video, please do like and subscribe. Head over to the TikTok page as well if you want to watch some of the shorter form content. International break next week, so we've got some ideas on what we might do video wise. Yeah, might be somewhat related to Carrow Road, but we will see. So we'll be back next week as normal for a slightly different themed video, and then the week after we'll be looking back over that game against Southampton. So yeah, we'll see you on the next one.